I didn't find out the sex of my baby. None of my babies, I've never found out the sex. I find out on the table, on the surgery table. And so this was a guessing game with my second born. Hi, my name is Nyambura, and these are my bun in the oven stories. With my firstborn, who is now almost 8, her name is Sian. I found out that I was pregnant with her while I was in my first year of campus. I was studying law at Strathmore Law School, and in my second semester of first year, I realized I was pregnant. As you can imagine, it was very scary, confusing, but for some reason in my heart and in my spirit, I knew that I wanted to have her. I wanted to carry her full term. And, you know, I was open to motherhood and just curious as to what it came with. With her, I think it was the hardest of my 3 pregnancies. Firstly, because it was so new. I was not used to the morning sickness. That really took me out. For 3 months, I was very, very sick. And you can imagine with the whole situation, my parents were not very happy with the whole thing. But with God's grace, I was able to go through the first trimester with no issues. The cravings that I had were mostly fast food. I remember going to Big Square for burgers mostly. In fact, there's a week where I ate burgers full time for the full 7 days. I used to cook with Dania a lot, you know, and I remember the night I realized something was wrong was I was making some chicken wings, and at the end when you throw the Dania in, and the smell just made me want to just throw up, and I knew something is really wrong here. I think that was the first indication that I was pregnant. So Dania was a no. In fact, if I would go to a restaurant and see Dania in their menu, I would leave the restaurant because I was just over it. And I think 8 years later, I'm still over Dania. So I think that these things actually carry on for long. And yeah, as far as I can tell, with cravings, that's the most thing I crave: burgers, fries, hot dogs, etc. But yeah, the pregnancy was a bit tough in the sense that I gained a whole lot of weight. I think pre-pregnancy I was about 63 kilos, and by the time I was going to give birth, I was about 106. I gained quite a bit of weight, but thank God that the weight did not affect the pregnancy. I was able to carry her to 9 months. Although I was not able to have a natural birth, in fact, all my children are born by a C-section. I was told by the doctors that I have an incontinent cervix, which basically means that my cervix was not able to dilate. And I hear that there's lots of women who have this, not necessarily issue, but difference with their bodies, and that's the prime reason I had to have the C-section. And yeah, I can say that my experience with the C-section was not unpleasant. Although the recovery was, you know, quite intense. The pain was very intense, especially the few days after. It was a huge shock because I was 20. All my friends at this time were coming back from uni in the UK and wherever they had gone, and you know, it was bunny summers and parties and all that, and I was home breastfeeding my baby. So that was a bit hard, you know, to kind of accept that my life had changed and I was now a mom, and my friends were on a different life path, despite theirs also being as important. So yeah, I remember the first day I brought Sian home, it was quite scary because this is a new baby, you know, we're just looking at each other like, who are you? And with time, I guess we grew used to each other. I got used to the breastfeeding, although I remember the first 6 weeks were very hard because I think I suffered from some small sort of postpartum depression, because I remember as the day would draw to evening, as 6 p.m. would draw near, I would get a sense of anxiety in my stomach and feeling like it's nighttime, it's me and this baby. You know, during the day, people can help you carry your baby, help you, you know, take care of your baby, but at night, it's you and your baby. And so I used to be filled with kind of like anxiety and fear. But, you know, with God, I think I got to a point where I remember sitting in my bathroom and telling myself, like, Nyambura, you know, you're a mom. You can either decide to get scared every time it gets to 6 p.m. or deal with it. You know, you have a child now. It's time to get up off this bathroom and just deal with the fact that you have a baby, you know. And so God gave me the strength to deal with it. And day by day, she grew. And you know, I thank God. And the good thing is I was able to resume my law studies. I had in fact dropped out once I found out I was pregnant. But once she was about 3 months, I was back in law school, although at a different campus. And yeah, we were now studying. I was studying, going home to breastfeed in between class, and you know, just embracing the whole motherhood journey. And so far, so good. Now she's almost 8. She has grown. She's lively and funny and clever, and you know, she's a lovely big sister. And yeah, I think for her pregnancy, that is all I can really remember. For my second born, her name is Nyla. She's now 19 months old. She's turning 2 soon. And with her, I guess it was a very different beginning compared to my firstborn, because I was very scared. We were not in a good place financially. You know, here's a new baby. You know, and I was kind of faced with the decision of, you know, should I have this baby or not? I want to point out, at the time I'm born again. At the time I was not born again, and so, you know, I had all these options, if you can understand, as to what I was gonna do. But during this period, I started hearing God's voice, and He was just telling me that, you know, he's got me, and I should be brave, and that He will provide, and that, you know, He's with me. And despite the surrounding circumstances, I can say that choosing to have my baby was actually a huge leap of faith. And I thank God for coming down for me, reaching down for me from heaven, and speaking to me in that sense. So yeah, I found out I was pregnant. Quite a shock as well. And you know, after I got born again and was convinced that it was God's will for my life, I went through the pregnancy. With her, the morning sickness was not too bad, although I still struggled because I was not in a very good place mentally because of all those fears. But, you know, over time, you know, God provided for us in miraculous ways, and we were able to get a new home, provide for our new baby who was coming, and I really thank God for that. So my second trimester with my second born was a bit shaky, because this was the time that COVID landed in Kenya. So it was a bit scary, you know, what happens with pregnant women. You know, we were at high risk. So it was basically lockdown in the house. I could not go anywhere because, you know, I was considered high risk for contracting COVID. Thanking God that that never happened. So far, I have not contracted COVID. If I have, I don't know. But I thank God that, yeah, we managed to go through the pregnancy with no hiccups. For her, actually, I didn't gain that much weight. I think by the time I was starting, I was around 70 kgs, and by the time I was giving birth, I was about 87 kgs. And she was quite a tiny baby, so I guess that's why. In terms of the C-section, this one was a bit traumatic because I remember lying on when they were giving me the epidural in my spine. I think I panicked when the needle got into my spine and I kind of jumped. And so I think it moved. And so I felt a lot of the pain once they injected me. I felt the anesthesia go up my spine. It was just a weird feeling, and I hope I never have to experience that again. But thanking God that she came out, she was healthy, she was strong. And yeah, I managed to go home with her just 2 days post CS, so I thank God. In terms of breastfeeding, with my firstborn, I had too much milk at some point, and so I never really struggled with breastfeeding. Just the usual: drink cocoa, drink porridge, jahe, etc., and things were good. But with my secondborn, I thank God I was able to breastfeed her until she was a year old. So while I was pregnant with my thirdborn, I was actually still breastfeeding my secondborn. And with her, I guess for me, the cravings I had were not necessarily anything specific. I think for her, I could eat anything and everything. Nothing really affected me in a negative way. She was a good baby, I think, in my belly and didn't affect me negatively. So yeah, with her, I just ate anything and everything. With my secondborn, I remember that I didn't find out the sex of my baby. None of my babies, I've never found out the sex. I find out on the table, on the surgery table. And so this was a guessing game with my secondborn. With my firstborn, I would crave, let's say, sweet things, but with my secondborn, I was craving sour things. And so I was so convinced she was a boy. In fact, with my firstborn, I would sleep primarily on my right, and with my second, I would sleep on my left. And so all these old wives' tales on the internet, I don't believe they're true because I was so convinced about the gender and I was so off. And so I think that was the one thing that showed me these cravings will not really point out what you're having as a baby. The one thing I can mention is due to the C-section being kind of botched in some way, the recovery period was longer, much longer than my third C-section. I think due to the fact that that whole incident happened, my recovery was affected in that way. So that was actually the hard part with my secondborn. It was hard to take care of her while I was still so very tired from my surgery. Fast forward to my thirdborn, my boy, he's called Benaya. He was not necessarily a surprise because when my secondborn was 8 months old, I remember I was kind of entertaining the idea of having a third born, but it was just jokes between me and my husband, ha 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 ha. But surprise, surprise, I got pregnant again. COVID was still around. I was still in a high-risk pregnancy, and this was high risk also because of the spacing between the two pregnancies was just very short. Yeah, that was hard. I will admit that my third pregnancy was very hard. Part of the reason for that was at the time we didn't, I used to do the housework, with the two kids, it's kind of easy to do the housework here and there, maybe call a mama fua just to come do the clothes. But, with this big belly growing and this small little baby and the other firstborn, it was kind of tough. So yeah, that's one thing I struggled with. Making sure the house was okay, making sure the babies were okay, making sure my mental health was okay. But I thank God that we managed to go through the first trimester, morning sickness and all. And with my son's second trimester was a bit hard. I was not able to go for my clinic checkups because I was too busy with the babies. But I thank God that he grew well. Every scan that we went to see, he was growing well. With regard to the C-section, I just felt like this was a miraculous C-section because I still had so much trauma from my last C-section. And I went in there. At first, I was even dreading going to the same hospital, and I had decided to book a different hospital. But, God kind of told me that, it's not about the hospital. It's not about the doctor. It's just about having faith in him that he will get me out of that surgery well. And so I booked the same hospital and went there in faith. And I thank God that there were no complications. He came out healthy and strong and is growing very, very well. Although now this was one surprising fact, I had a lot of breastfeeding problems with my third born. I actually, in the hospital, I had a lot of milk. He was okay, but when I got home, for some reason, I did not have milk, and despite the cocos, despite the porridges, despite the njahes, there was not enough milk. He was not getting full, despite the pumping and all that. And I think it's very, very, it can make a mother very sad because all you want to do is breastfeed your child, but your body is not cooperating. And me having had such good success with my two children before, I did not know how to navigate these new waters. And my mental health took a hit. I remember I was a bit depressed and anxious, wondering, am I failing as a mother? What is going on with my body? And obviously that stress would impact the milk, and with time it just ran out. And so he has been bottle fed from about 3 months. And I think for me that was an eye-opener for women out there who struggle to breastfeed and are kind of stigmatized as you're not really taking care of your child. I feel like it can happen to anyone. And so, women should be encouraged that, just feed your baby however you can. If you can breastfeed, great. If you can bottle feed, perfect. As long as the baby is getting fed, I think that's amazing. And now that he is 5 months old, I am just raising him one day at a time, making sure he's drinking as much milk. I was able to supplement his milk with goat milk. I was able to get some goat milk from some farmers. And so that's a tip for some moms. If you can't breastfeed, if you can get some goat milk, if formula is too expensive for you, goat milk is the way to go. And he's very healthy, very happy, and I thank God for that. With my third born, I think I ate a lot of, I know cliche, but pickles. I ate lots and lots of pickles. They have delicious pickles at Carrefour, and you know, I would send my husband literally, on your way home, make sure you get me a can of pickles. So that was a funny thing. I thought it was cliche, but it's actually a thing. It's actually a thing. With regard to the clinics, with my firstborn, I was definitely more committed to the clinics, and I think I was there every month for my clinics. So I had an amazing doctor, and currently she's now retired, but she was an amazing doctor. I remember she told me that I have to drink 1 liter of milk daily for the entire pregnancy, and I actually did that, 1 liter of milk daily. And I think that contributed to my crazy weight gain. But yeah, the clinics were good. I think the hardest part for me in the clinics is the injections, the tetanus and all. But with my second-born, I felt that it was easier because we didn't have to attend as many clinics. As I said, COVID-19 was rampant, and I actually found it easier. I feel like mothers have instincts that can kind of tell you if your baby is okay or if your baby is not okay. And so I felt comforted in the fact that I didn't have to attend clinics as much as I did with my firstborn. With my thirdborn, the clinics were just as many as my secondborn, just the usual scans and injections and, you know, checking if the baby is okay. I think for me, if I had known earlier that my cervix was incontinent, I would have easily been prepared for the C-section. I think that's the one thing I would change in terms of my diagnosis. But all in all, I think my clinics were a good experience. I would advise women to go for the clinics. Go for the clinics as much as you can. Listen to your doctor. And yeah, also trust yourself. Trust yourself as a mother. The funny thing with me is labor pains. I actually did not experience labor pains. I cannot tell you how a labor pain feels. I don't know if this is a good thing, but I think because I was having C-sections, I was not able to go through labor. With my firstborn, they actually tried to induce my labor, but I still did not go into labor for some reason. That's actually when they found out I have an incontinent cervix, right when I'd gone to deliver the baby. And so I did not experience labor pains. But I think the pain that you experience after the C-section is just as crazy. Maybe, I don't know, I can't speak for those who have had labor pains, but it's also just as insane, because they literally cut open into layers and layers of your stomach. So I think there's no easy way to have a baby. Whether you do it natural or C-section, you'll still feel some sort of pain in some way. So with my second-born and third-born, like I said, because they were pre-planned C-sections, the hospital I went to declined to try for a natural birth. They had a policy that stated that if I had had a C-section, they would not be able to try for a natural birth. I think for me that was also a negative aspect of the birth experience. I think in my case, yes, I have an incontinent cervix, but other women might have a C-section for another reason or the other. And to kind of block them off from having a natural birth with their other children is kind of limiting, in my opinion, because there's other doctors who do it abroad. So in a parting shot, I think one thing I can advise any young girls or women out there who may be pregnant and in school or studying or etc. I was able to get my degree in law while still being a mom, and you know, that was a huge achievement for me. I just feel like, do not let fear get into the way of you carrying that child, taking care of that child. You know, God's grace is so sufficient, and I believe women can have babies and achieve their dreams at the same time. So yeah, I would like to just encourage any girl who's out there maybe wondering how their life will go if, you know, they keep the baby, etc. I just want to encourage them that, you know, God's plan is always bigger than what we understand. Yeah, and that's it. Those are my burn in the oven stories for my children. Thank you.